Hey, what is up, guys? Zero One, and today I'm going to be speaking to you about Avengers: Age of Ultron. I had a good time with this film. It was very fun, very creative. The way they were introduced in the beginning of the film. Each and every character comes with a way of just really falling in love with them. I mean, you have Captain America, Soldier Out of Time. You also have Hawkeye, played by Jeremy Renner, who really does a really good job in portraying this type of assassin type of soldier who's taking on all these individuals just with the bow and arrow. You also have Scarlet Witch, where she is a woman that has very different ways of interacting with her colleagues, especially a certain one of them who is very green. You have Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, and the new additions of the Avengers, which I'll be speaking more about that. It starts off with the band. I mean, the story is about basically Ultron coming into the scene, being created to protect the Earth, but at the same time he turns on the people that created him. Ultron is a very cynical and very not charismatic, but very likable type of evil. You kind of like his wit. You like the way he handles himself with other individuals. Me personally, I found him very, very comical. That's what I found Ultron to be, very comical. I found the team, the Avengers, to be how can I put it, working as a team and fighting the baddies as a team. It's kind of like they've been practicing for a while and they got it down. It's like, you take this guy, you take that one, let's do this. And just the way they work, it's very unison. And I like that. I was like, man, they really look like a team. They like being around each other. They like hanging out with each other. They communicate with each other like friends instead of just soldiers. So that was pretty tight watching the Avengers, and especially in Tony Stark's building. I really like the gear that Tony Stark has in his upgraded building. I was just like, man, that's a real tight, working office. I mean, you got this laboratory, you have all these high-tech gears, you have, this new type of invention that's coming out, and that it doesn't even come out before, to the world until the Avengers use it. Oh, we gotta test it out. Cinematography wise, it's beautiful. It's very bright. You don't get confused because there's none of that shaking cam at all. It's like you understand what's happening in the scene, and I love that. I cannot stand when directors start using all these different crazy CGI scenes and shaky cam and all this nonsense where it's like you don't know what's happening so that's one of the things I really appreciate of Josh Whedon doing. He didn't over bombard the audience with so much CGI and so much special effects to the point where you're like, stop. Let me just let me take it in, one step at a time. I know he wasn't handling the camera, but when it comes to directing, putting the camera where it's supposed to, it really helps out, conveying the story to the audience. So I like that. And Josh and his team did a real good job in just bringing the story to life. I had a great time with each and every character. I also had a great time with Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. The Maximoffs were pretty cool to watch in action. I really loved the way they were brought into the scene, where it's like you understand their motivation, you understand their pain and their hurts, and you understand why they're doing the things that they're doing. And the actress who portrayed them did a good job. I think it was Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen. They did a good job in portraying their characters and showing that type of intensity. Like hey, we're hurt and we're in pain and we're gonna do some damage to you. I know a lot of people are giving them slack on the accents, the Eastern European accents, but I really didn't mind them at all. I really did not mind them. What else? I definitely also liked Paul, who portrays the Vision. Did a really good job. I like the way the Vision looked. I really like the way he came across. He came like this really approachable hero, and I was, and the way he looked was real cool. I was like, man, that's a real cool suit he has, and the eyes, and he had like this mixture of being an android and at the same time being human, and just fusing them together. Bam, you got the Vision. So I mean, I had a real fun time with this film. I really did. Now let's get into the cons. The cons in the film are, as good as the film was, there's a lot of cons. For starters, there was it just felt too rushed. Like the film felt rushed. Like, bam, out of nowhere, the Avengers know where they need to be, where they need to go. They knew, like, oh yeah, the reason why he's in this country, Wakanda. Yeah, Wakanda is because he's trying to get, this special rare material. And I was like, man, that was pretty quick. And like all the different files that the Avengers have access to, I was like, dude, when Shield went down and Winter Soldiers, all those files were were actually just sent off into the population. And I was like, these guys had everything, all the files that the Shield had. I was like, come on, seriously. I think another thing that I just, especially that scene with Hawkeye and his family. I mean, you fall in love with the family, but at the same time, it's kind of like you really just want to get back into the mode of, let's try and take this guy down. Let's try and take Ultron down. Another thing that I didn't like was Ultron, the way he was handled. In a sense, not the portrayal of the actor who portrayed Ultron or who brought Ultron to life. The thing was just his motivation. It's like, bam, Ultron just comes into existence and he just wants to destroy the human race, and that's it. You really don't have that. He doesn't really have that desire or motivation that he should have to exterminate the human race. He just comes in and he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna destroy the Avengers and everybody else, and that's it. And I'm like, well, why? What's your and another thing that it's not explained is like if he existed for hundreds of thousands of years in that staff, I'm pretty sure he should have had some sort of hate or bitterness or pride or something that really kind of made him tick. And to me, it's like they don't make a good explanation of why he's doing the things that he's doing. He just he's just there, basically. The story lacked is coherence. One thing, a good example is they find where Ultron's at, and it's a coincidence that Cap's right where he's supposed to be, where Cap's passing, or actually where Ultron's passing through the expressway. He's like, Cap's like, hey, I think to Hawkeye, and he's like, do you see any trucks or anything like out of the ordinary? And then Hawkeye's like, oh yeah, it's right right behind you, or actually right on the bottom where you're at. And he's like, oh, okay, bam, right there. I was like, what are you talking about, man? Ultron took off like an hour and a half before you got there. You're just there. And then the fight scene between Ultron and Captain America just looked too unrealistic. I mean, I know Captain America is a super soldier, but this is like a deadly robot or android or artificial intelligence that he can just bust through a wall without stopping, and he can also bust through flesh, human flesh, without stopping. So when you see him fighting against Captain America, it just felt too unrealistic. Another thing that it kind of threw me off was Avengers. The very first Avengers really felt grounded. I felt like they weren't going too overboard with the whole comic book thing. I mean, there are characters that you learn and you fall in love with, and they kind of operate in this kind of type of realm where it's like, okay, if it's possible, we can try it out. But then in Age of Ultron, I felt like, man, they went too overboard with the comic book stuff. I mean, to the point where they were doing stuff that in reality it would not even work at all. I mean, at all. There's this one scene where what was it? Hawkeye gets hit by this big giant machine gun that throws out laser beams. I mean, like big giant balls of energy. And instead of him being cut into half, he just gets this scar. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what? I mean, that thing should have gone through him like that, knife through a butter. That scene where Captain America is in his motorcycle, the very first scene, and he's driving, he's taking down soldiers. It just looked too CGI for me. It looked like, I mean, if the motorcycle felt like it didn't have any weight, it was just gliding through the scene and stuff like that. It just took me out. I think another thing that was a con for me was the way Thor goes into his vision quest. He has to go into this quest because he has his vision because Scarlet Witch, tries to mess with his mind. And it's never explained why from anybody else of the group of the Avengers he has a vision, because everybody else has a nightmare. Even though you don't see the nightmare of Bruce Banner at all, it's never explained. And but with Thor, he has his vision of what's going to happen in the future, and that's never explained. Like, why does he have a vision and everybody else just has a nightmare? So when he goes into this quest because he needs to find some answers, it just felt out of place with the entire story. I felt like Thor could have just been with the rest of the the rest of the Avengers, and he could have just gone to the jacuzzi and just meditated and be like, okay, I got this vision and these stones. Let me try to focus on what my father and my mother taught me in the past. That would still work. And instead, it's like he goes into this unknown location, and there's water there, and he's like, I gotta meditate and I gotta focus, and he goes, ah! There's a lot of screaming and then yelling, and I was just like, what's going on, man? Like, they're trying to cast a demon out of him or what? I was like, this just doesn't, it just doesn't jive with the entire story. I'm trying to say it. And also the trailer, when I saw the trailer for Age of Ultron, I think I saw a young lady in the cave, and she never appears in the entire film at all. And I was like, what the heck was that all about? I mean, you just try and trick me into watching your film. And in this one, it was just things that came out of nowhere, out of left field, and it wasn't explained. Another thing that, like, the whole Romanoff and Bruce Banner, it didn't make sense, because for starters, Romanoff is a type of character who really, I mean, she said it herself in the very first Avengers, like, love is for kids, love's not real. For her, she's an assassin, she goes from one objective to another. And in this one, somehow she falls in love for Bruce Banner, which Bruce Banner already has a girlfriend. If you ever seen the other Hulk films, he has I think a scientist as a girlfriend, and that just didn't. I mean, it felt out of place. I mean, that's those characters fall in love. I think another thing that fell out of place was Nick Fury. Nick Fury just comes out of nowhere to help the Avengers, and you're just like, where did you come from? You're kind of like, what the heck? This came out of left field. I did not expect this to happen. How did the Maximoffs know where Ultron was? It's like you just see them out of nowhere. They're walking, they're minding their own business, and they're like, oh yeah, let's go to this abandoned building because we're going to that abandoned building. And I was like, how did you know that he was there? It's never explained. Another thing was just the characters. The Avengers, the way Josh handles his characters are very realistic in a sense that you understand their personality. You understand why they do certain things. The only thing is, like, there's certain times in the Age of Ultron where it just felt like you're kind of like, what? The plot holes and just felt rushed. That's one of the things that I just have a negative with. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to me banter and talk about Age of Ultron. What was it? Please subscribe, and you guys are welcome to put your input. Be respectful about it and hit that like button. Thank you so much. Jesus is King. Later, guys. Bye.